Welcome to the District 205 Finance and Operations Committee meeting, April 12th, 2020. We are going to be holding this meeting remotely to comply with the governor's orders. So first of all, Karen, are you on with us? Karen Stukin?
Oh, yes, she is. She's on.
How do we?
Well, she needs to speak.
Yeah, I'm on, Jim. Can you hear me?
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you, Karen. I just want to make sure we had a quorum of the committee. Chris Kaczynski is not going to be in attendance tonight. All right, so next on the agenda is public comments. Dave Smith, do we have any public comments that have been submitted? Okay, so no public comments were submitted to the Bitly comment that was posted on the meeting announcement. So with that, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the Finance and Operations Committee meetings from
February 3rd. February 3rd.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Karen, are there any edits that you want to make? Hearing none, then those minutes will stand as submitted. So now we have items A through M, quite an agenda tonight. So let's start with item A, Group 1 project update.
So, Dave, we would like the PowerPoint for Groups 1 and 2 projects. And I'm going to turn this over to Todd Schmidt and Terry Fielden.
You want me to go, Todd, or you want to start?
Go ahead. You can start, Terry.
Okay, thanks. All right, so this is my third virtual call of the day. Yay! so I'm going to give you a brief overview on the status of Group 1 projects and where we are currently with the status of construction. We have started at both Bryan and Edison and a couple of other places, so I'll give you some highlights on that. Next slide, please. Can you go to the next slide? Oh, go back to the boat rocking a little bit. Okay. So next time we need to use actual PowerPoint, maybe. Anyway, so for weathering the storm, obviously we're in the midst of COVID-19. So we've had to make some adjustments within the construction industry right now. We've brought out extra hand washing stations. We have to take greater precautions to make sure the workers stay separated by 6 foot and so forth. And we're going to be continuing to address that through the summer. We are also taking weekly updates on material shipments because that's a little subject to change based on state regulations and whether or not they can keep factories going. So we're trying to monitor that on a weekly basis, and we'll be updating Todd Schmidt and everybody else in administration as those situations change. Next slide, please. So just a reminder of the Group 1 and Group 2 projects. I'm going to speak about Group 1. Leanne's going to speak about Group 2 because that's more in design right now. So for Group 1, we have Edison Elementary, which we've started, Bryan Middle School, which we've started, and the secure entries. Just to let you know, Fisher has an addition, and we broke ground on that foundation today as planned to be early before summer gets here. And we also just bid out the Emerson site work to increase the detention area and replace the parking lot, and that'll be up for board award. Next slide, please. So in Group 1 at Edison, There's a couple of pictures here of what's going on. You can see there's a lot of dirt exposed. We're doing site utility work, been clearing the site of the trees and shrubbery and so forth, building in the Hall Road, putting a temporary playground surface at the front of the school for the little kiddos to play. And we have the electrician inside working in the renovation area while we're on hiatus from school. So we're taking a little bit of advantage of the schools being closed by the governor, and wisely so, to do some electrical work on the inside that we would not ordinarily be doing. So that's one of the things we're trying to help stave off manpower load in the summer at Edison. Next slide, please. So at Bryan Middle School, you can see that the first picture there up to your right, you can see that the canopy is now gone. We had always planned to do that over spring break, and with the schools being closed, we got a little early start on that as well too. That was really one of the most disruptive portions of the demolition phase, so we're happy to get that out of the way without anybody in the building. And we're also doing some site utility work there as well, because that's the first thing you have to do to get rid of the water. And again, the electrician is working inside the building because he's a trade we can get in there and keep things going. Go ahead, next slide. I think that's, and the rest of the rest of the projects we're working on secure entry vestibules, finalizing village permits, mobilizing contractors, making sure materials lined up. And for Emerson, as I mentioned, we just bid that. We had 22 bids received for 4 packages, which was pretty good. We're finalizing the parent low bidders, making sure the scope is correct, and we'll adjust the schedule as the school calendar allows. Meaning that if the governor goes ahead and cancels school for the rest of the year, we'll get going on that work sooner.
You have all your, Terry, this is Rob Martinelli. You have all your stormwater permits in place. So I see this identifying working with village on permits. What about stormwater detention permits? All those are good to go?
We have those for Edison and Bryan. We're finalizing the other 2.
Okay. Any pushback, or everybody working through it? Because MWRD is kind of a problem right now, but this is not MWRD.
And not MWRD. This is strictly DuPage, and we just have to deal with the city of Elmhurst. So,
okay.
But they've been very cooperative. They were very cooperative last year. We don't have any trouble with them. So.
Okay. Cool.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, my wife is stranded, and I would like to stay for Leanne's presentation, but I'd also like to be excused, if that's okay with the board.
Terry?
Yes.
Todd also has on this item the Emerson bidding results.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you want to go over the Emerson bid results before you left?
Yeah. Do you have a display for that?
Let's see here. So it is attached in, we have it in administrative content, Dave. No. Todd, do you want to talk about the result?
Do you have any, sorry, before we get off of that, do you have any furniture, do you have any furniture needs that are currently impacted by this? I mean, Terry talked about the weekly check-ins on construction. I know some of the furniture vendors out of Michigan extended to the 30th today, which, you know, there's some library shelving impacts. I don't know the extent of all that furniture, but I know a lot of school districts are having furniture issues because no one wants to guarantee anything right now.
Well, with the furniture right now, we don't have any issues with the most of this furniture that's coming in for these Group 1 projects is office furniture. So we submitted the purchase orders to Midwest Office Interiors. They haven't stated to me that there's any backlog on it right now. We submitted those orders about 2-3 weeks ago.
It's a changing by the week discussion right now. So we're taking no one's word for it, Todd. That's the world we're living in is check behind the guy, because If that one piece part comes from Michigan and that's the socket the guy needs or something, now you got a problem, right? That's kind of the world. It is over management of everything, unfortunately.
Right. You know, the one thing we did talk about today at our weekly construction meeting is about some of the flooring contractors are going to be shutting down for 2 weeks potentially, along with some of the light fixtures. So that's the only words we've heard so far on my end, unless Terry, you've heard something else.
No, I haven't. We have a casework impact on another school out of Michigan case, but it's
correct. Yeah.
There's nothing serious for us at the moment. So, and
so what?
I don't think we would be impacted by that for Edison, which would be the prime school.
What Armstrong Flooring indicated is they're still shipping product. They are not manufacturing new products. So they're kind of, and that might just be a lull, meaning they don't have the supply. So therefore it's, hey, let's shut this down, but we're still going to ship from in-stock material. So that's probably what Terry's folks are doing now is checking all those piece parts. So
that's correct. And our contractors are generally pretty cooperative with us and they like to maintain good relationships. So
you have extra labor force on the jobs, cleaning high touch areas. If the school in any of these spaces while you're in them?
No.
So there's no facilities folks in these buildings, no teachers, nobody in a building where your electricians are working inside of. So there's no potential for cross contamination, meaning if the electrician walks in sick and the librarian stopped in to get something, we're not potentially getting anybody sick.
There's no district personnel in our facilities right now, other than when we're handing out the food with food service at Churchville and York. And our maintenance and custodial staff are not in the buildings; they're home right now. What we're doing is just bringing a maintenance staff in 2 to 3 times a week just to do building checks. So there's really nobody in the building.
And they're typically walking in their back house areas anyways by themselves. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
And we are monitoring who goes in and who goes out of the buildings.
Yeah, that's the key, right? It's just, it's put it on lockdown.
Yes. And obviously if something does come up, I mean, we'll know. We have a plan in place that's been transmitted to the district already. They've seen it. So we'll be able to follow up on that.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
That's all right. I was able to locate the bid results, Chris, while we were.
Oh, great.
So, I had the bid results. How do you want me to go over them? You want me to just go over the low bidders or?
Just hit the low bidders.
Okay. So for the excavation site utility, which is bid package 1, Lenny Hoffman Excavating was the low bidder. They're about $2,000 low on roughly $780,000 worth of work. We have quite a bit of experience with Lenny Hoffman, and they are currently under contract for Edison School. The second bid package was concrete, and it was also another competitive bid. The low bid was Ed Fogarty Concrete, followed by Vixen. It was about 20 grand or so, separated the 2 bids, so it's very competitive. We do have experience with Fogarty, so we don't expect anything unusual there. Bid package 3 was asphalt paving. Another competitive bid cycle, $4 grand separating the low bid from the second bid. And Glander Paving, very reputable firm. And the last package was electrical. So Austin Electric is a company we do regular work with. We'll be reviewing that number and making sure that they have everything included.
And Todd, the board will be voting on the Emerson site work bids April board meeting, correct?
Yeah. Yes, we'll have that moving forward to from my understanding, the April 28th board meeting.
Yeah, we have a recommendation letter out, so.
Yeah. With this, just to let the committee know that this Emerson project, this is in the referendum. This is part of the project for Emerson floods right now. So when the water comes in the building, we have to put sandbags in there. The building has flooded with, 6 to 8 inches of water on that first floor several times. So this is going to divert the water away from the property in conjunction with the church next to it. to do some work on their property to divert the water from their surface area away from our surface area and into the detention pond. And also, I need to point out here that based off of this, we're paying for some sins of the past with above ground water detention. We had to increase the water detention area based on previous additions that were put on this building. So that is incorporated into the scope of work.
Jim, this is Karen. Can I speak?
Jim?
Oh, Chris, you can hear? Okay.
Yes,
So-
Karen, go ahead. It took us.
Okay, thanks. Todd, thanks for including that. That was my question about the flooding at Emerson that has been taking place over several projects now. You said that you're coordinating with the church next door. How is that going? And are we working side by side with them? I know some of the churches are having financial difficulties. Do we know that it's still going to happen from what we knew from our neighbor?
Yes, with our neighbor out there, it's really no cost for them. What we're doing is we're cutting out a portion of their parking lot area, installing a curb and underground sewers and drainage to go under our property. And also, when we put up some new light poles, instead of putting a single head on our property, we're putting a double head to get some light onto their parking lots, which, we use it all the time too. And then we're going to have to look at a dumpster enclosure to redo it over there for some of the areas that we got to put some of the underground water piping in there along with some of the curbs. So there's no cost to them. I've had 2 meetings with them plus a couple email conversations with the final plans. My plan was to reach out to them again and formalize everything with them. So we're just kind of doing that through email. But they were all happy. The meetings I've had with them, they were fine with it. It's going to be some enhancements to their property, but it's really going to help us divert that water away from the building.
Great, thank you.
So if there are no other questions on letter A, Group 1 projects update, we're going to move on to Group 2 projects update.
Okay. If you need me, Chris, you can text me.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
Leanne.
I'm ready.
All right, let me start off, and then you can go into the 2 elementary schools because I'll hit. Part of the Group 2 projects are obviously Lincoln and Field, the new schools. We're looking at the Emerson interior renovations. Now, this is a little bit different from what we had before, but we went with Emerson because we felt that we wanted to take a building based off of the cash flow that we have and just complete a whole building. So we would do the outside site work at Emerson this year, and then next year we would do all the interior renovations. So Emerson will be done. Plus that'll help us for when we do the renovations at the other elementary schools that will have a building that's we can have summer school at. So that's why we kind of moved Emerson up there. It was just for the need of the districts for the future years here for construction plus the cash flow. And also with the York Mechanical, we had to move this up here because we have 16 boilers up there at York. This was initially in like Group 5, but of the 16 boilers right now, 4 of them are down, and those are all installed at the same time. So we felt it prudent to make sure that our high school has enough capacity for the heating seasons. And we're also on that mechanical work. We're going to take care of the pool. The pool ventilation system is rusting out and not functioning properly, so we're going to take care of that. And then with the track in there, this summer we're doing the field turf, replacing the field turf at the high school. We wanted to do that first, and then next year we get the track done, so that stadium project is all completed, so then we can move on to some other work. And then the other 2 projects, Leanne will go through Lincoln and Field with you.
But Todd, so the Emerson work and York work that you just described, that's the summer of 21, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Leanne, it's all yours.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Many of you haven't met me yet. I'm the Vice President of Architecture, and I'm taking over working with the Elmhurst School District upon Terry Moller's retirement last month. So I've had a couple of weeks to get to know the project, and I'm very excited. I've been working with most of your staff and district office personnel before we started COVID. So I have been through some of your buildings, and I've been into the district. So I'm very excited. Lincoln and Field are well underway in our office. Some of the items that we've taken care of, we had a workshop, luckily, before we were all on stay at home. We had a workshop with the district administration, the school leadership, and the principals, who were very, very helpful in developing their program of space needs for both Lincoln and Field. We're developing conceptual plans and site plans for both of the schools at the same time to make sure that we're hitting on the budget together, and also to make sure we have parity of programs and offerings at both schools. So you'll get to see those floor plans and site plans at the April board meeting when we present a full presentation. But the progress is just wonderful. The team has been working so well, and the staff has been so helpful, and the administration, that I think you'll be very excited when you see the two designs. As we said, Emerson Elementary is underway. We've started working on that scope, and we will be talking to that principal and group there shortly, as soon as we can arrange a Zoom meeting with them. And the same with York. We're underway, but we're working with the district to see how we can access the building to take a couple of measurements on some of the mechanical units with our engineering staff. So everything is cooking, and we're very excited at the progress.
Do we have a Leanne? This is Rob Marnelli. How are you?
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Good. Long time no talk.
I know. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. I know you have it buried somewhere, but do you have a milestone design schedule chart? Because my fear is that
next slide. I think it's on the next slide. I think you should have. Yeah.
It's just right now it's harder to get going on stuff, right? If with a little bit of a technology bind, and that's my fear, is, are we losing any time that we're going to have to gain back later on, because it's going to be harder to get to decision points that you need to do your job?
You know, amazingly, we are not experiencing any delays. We've had several Zoom meetings, and the technology is so great. We've been able to show options and circle things live, and the plans are very far along. So
Okay.
in concept. So I think
concept. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're right on schedule. You can see up on the slide where April is. We're right in the middle of Lincoln and Field. We're right at the schematic design, right where we need to be.
Okay. Cool. So no roadblocks yet.
No roadblocks yet. We'll certainly work with the board and your administration after the 14th to see, what the process is for any public commentary. But the technology is really working out well.
Okay.
And I believe that's all we had.
So a quick question
Yes.
is, on this chart, it shows the football turf being built this summer. I thought I said somebody said that was next year.
No, the football turf, replacing the existing football field turf, is this summer. Next summer would be the track. And then also next summer, there's other turf out there with the IGA, with the city, on that center area in front of, just south of the building for the underground storage water detention. So that'll be turf there.
Gotcha. Thanks for the clarification.
All right. Any other questions regarding group 2?
How's that IGA working? Is that like a root canal to get it through, or is it you're projecting you got plenty of time to get there by next year? Because those can be painful.
Yeah. This one was actually pretty good. Kara and the rest of the board really ushered this through. It's already approved. They've started the soil borings and surveying out there and working on the engineering. Initially, the city wanted to do that this summer, but they realized that there was too much engineering work out there. So it's going to happen next summer, but it's actually going pretty good right now.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, so if there are no other questions about Group 1 and Group 2, we will move on to Todd is going to discuss the flooring contract.
Some of you may be aware that there was a decision to come down through a flooring contractor, Vortex Flooring, where they did some of the individuals that were within the company were found guilty of bid rigging. So as a recommendation, part of this is Vortex Flooring is no longer. They sold out in November to Consolidated Flooring. The district has no contracts with Vortex currently. We do have contracts with Consolidated Flooring. The individuals that were part of the Vortex are no longer working for Consolidated Flooring. But there was just, you'll see the opinion paper in there through our attorney of, just we wanted to keep the board informed of what's going on since this was a company that was found guilty, or employees of the company were found guilty of bid rigging, and the district did have contracts with them in previous years. We currently have no more with them. What we do have for this summer is we do have contracts with Consolidated Flooring for the gym at Churchville, the floor replacement, and the Group 1 projects. Based on, what we need to look at, the recommendation from the administration is to keep the existing contracts that we have in place and move forward this summer and then reevaluate it. And part of the reason I say that is this little sting that, if you want to call it that, for these flooring contractors, there's other contractors that are going to be involved in that. And plus, right now, we're behind the gun to send this out to bid. And what I'm worried about is if we send it out to bid, go to another flooring contractor, and then all of a sudden that flooring contractor is involved in this little bid rigging scheme, then we're really going to be, have no contractor for the flooring out there. You'll see the opinion paper out there from our attorney. It's kind of a gray area in there. As long as those individuals are employed with with Consolidated Flooring anymore, we can still maintain our contracts with Consolidated Flooring. So that's kind of what we're recommending. We're just presenting this out there to the board. If they have any different opinions on that, that's kind of where we are with the flooring contractors.
Jim, I have some questions.
All right, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, so Todd, you're talking about if they're employed, but it sounds as though they contract with Consolidated, and it sounds like that's an issue. So one, I'd like that clarified. Thanks for sharing the information about, we don't know about other companies, but the third piece and the second concern I have is I really don't want to be paying for legal fees to get a flooring company, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand that. Vortex Flooring is no longer in existence. They sold out everything as of November of last year, so that company is no longer out there. And we do not have any contracts with Vortex. We have contracts with Consolidated Flooring. And it wouldn't be necessary legal fees as we move forward. I wish Terry was on there, but with the Group 1 projects, the next lowest bidder was about $100,000 to $150,000 more than what we have right now. So we have to weigh that out if we have to have any additional attorney fees. I think the attorney fees we would have is just to make sure that, okay, our contract's moving forward, we're in good shape, make sure Consolidated Flooring adhere to some of the recommendations by our outside legal counsel, which I believe they have, but we would have to verify that, and then we could move forward with that.
But hey, Todd, ICI is holding the contracts, correct? The district's not holding. Who's actually holding
one contract?
Meaning who's? Go ahead. Sorry, Todd.
Oh no, sorry. That's the problem with this. For the Group 1 projects, ICI is holding the contract. For the Churchville flooring project, the district is holding that contract. It was about $100,000 to replace that gym floor.
Okay. So you're only at risk in theory if something went south later on. You're only at risk for $100,000 floor. ICI would have to go litigate, right? Because they're physically contracting with that firm. It's not a district issue, in my opinion. It'd be a ICI and consolidated issue. So that is step one to me, is who's holding what. So your risk, I think, there from my perspective is low. I also think if it's the same, I didn't look at the letter, but it's the same letter I've seen from attorneys on other jobs. It is, if your attorney had a steadfast arm to hold them at bay and say you shouldn't be awarding this, they would tell you that. It's left gray because I don't believe that you can win it. So and you're not the only district awarding to Consolidated. I mean, you can FOIA it. Maine Township just awarded 3 projects, monster projects to them. New Trier last month. These are just jobs I'm on, so I can tell you from a area-wide issue, your peers are issuing subcontract or prime trade agreements to Consolidated. And to be honest, thus far on getting us stuff and getting us what we need as a subcontract and partner, they've been very good with it. And if the district was involved, you would have known about it 2 years, because this litigation or sting operation or hunt and find started about 2.5 years ago. So if the district would know about it, or Todd's predecessor would know about it. So I doubt, to take any fears away of what the district has been doing, you would already known. So if there was some bid rigging that happened on one of your jobs.
Yep. And you're absolutely correct there. I mean, there's a lot of districts. Vortex did so much work for school districts out there. So I've talked to some of my other peers and been on some other insight. A lot of districts have just renewed the contracts with Consolidated, or moving forward with it too.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's pretty much all I have on that one. It was present everything out there, give you what the administration's recommendation, and just to see if there's any questions.
All right. Thank you, Todd. Should we move on to the furniture update?
Yeah. So Todd, we'd like you to go over the 5th grade, the 5th grade design of the classroom first.
Okay, what you have out here, the district presented, or the administration presented to the district a few months ago. We're looking at a furniture upgrade plan, along with everything else, with the referendum work, with our life cycle plan. We're also looking at to refresh our furniture in our elementary schools. So we spread it out over 5 years, 5.5-ish years, to do a grade level a year. This year we're starting with 5th grade classrooms. So as you can see on that screen right there, this is of the individual 5th grade classroom, room 210 at Fisher. This is what they picked. The process we've been going through is we have an interior designer, Annie Egler, that we've been working with to standardize on our furniture throughout the district. We had her contact, meet with the principal and the teachers out there, give them some conceptual ideas of what the classroom look based off of our standards that we have. We're giving them choices within a box of standards we have. So what we're trying to stop is individuals going out to Amazon or going to Walmart, just picking up furniture and putting in their classroom. We're coming up with appropriate furniture that's for flexibility in the classroom, that's solid furniture that has good warranty, that's going to last. So as we go through there and we meet with the principals, we meet with the teachers, we give them this choice. They start designing the classroom that they would like to have in there. And a lot of the teachers, as you can see on this one, they're given a lot of different types of flexible furniture, where they got some high tables out there, they got some low tables, they also have some comfy seating that they use for reading sessions and things like that. Plus they have a little bit lower, it's about 16 inches off the ground tables that the kids can sit there and read. This is really more in the concept of the flexible classroom to give the children the different options within there. So you'll see this on here this is the 5th grade. We have all the purchase orders in right now. A lot of this is Han Furniture, Frank Cooney, VS, Fleetwood, KI. It just kind of shows you what we're doing and what we're putting in the classrooms here for 5th grade for next year.
The teacher desks are much more mobile and
Good point.
and can be moved around the room, and all of this furniture can be set in a lot of different formations. But you don't see the big black teacher desk in the corner of the room like you used to. They're mobile and the lots of different sizes and heights because all the kids like a variety.
Hey, Todd, I have a question for you. What is the warranty on a lot of this furniture? This is significant, different design than the industrial grade stuff that's currently in our elementary schools.
Excellent question. I don't have that on the tip of my tongue right now, but for the individual pieces that we have out there, I can definitely get that for you from our interior designer.
Thank you. Is this furniture all, for lack of a better term, battle proven?
Yes, it's a lot, and a lot of the furniture is VS, which is very popular with school districts. It's good furniture. This stuff will last the test of time.
It will. Okay.
I have a question, Jim. It's Karen. It's probably more for Dave Moyer.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, thanks. There's two perspectives. One, this is for every 5th grade classroom for next year?
Well, the way we tried to scope this out was to take a look at how we were going to do the new construction and then figure out a way to bring everybody up to speed over a period of 5 years so that by the time the new buildings were completed, everybody would be in a similar situation. And Todd came up with the plan and in conjunction with Chris and built it into the budget. And we've had some adjustments, some minor adjustments due to the addition of all-day kindergarten. But essentially, we decided to do a grade level at a time, and the decision was to start with 5th grade. So it's not the new construction is included in the referendum FF&E. So we're not going to get the new furniture for the buildings where there's already going to be new furniture purchased. That'll get purchased when those buildings are completed. But otherwise, the idea is that we were going to bring everything up to speed one grade level at a time, and that would kind of allow a soft enough budget hit and a timeline that would make it so that we could have all of the buildings relatively equitable at the same time that all of the new construction is complete.
Okay, and does this include the just possibly supporting it financially or no?
Well, this was part of a district plan. We presented it to the board, but we are going to probably come out ahead a little bit as a district due to some generosity from some PTAs. Because, for example, in the case of Edison, they don't want some classrooms not done when their building opens or other things like that. So some of these building PTAs are trying to help contribute. Another example is I don't know exactly how this shook out. Todd and everybody's been involved in this conversation, but Bryan wanted to do something with furniture, and we talked with them and thought about the idea that doing the media center there would impact all kids. And so we had them pick out furniture that was going to be consistent with what the new schemes for, the new schematic designs look like for the media center there. And that if they contribute to that, that might displace some money that we had already budgeted there that we could accelerate or repurpose for other areas. So Todd, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but, and Karen, I think I addressed what you're asking, but I'm happy if I didn't hit the mark to, further elaborate. And I think that, Todd is in constant communication with the principals about furniture. That seems to be on everybody's mind all the time. So if you want to add some additional details that I missed, please feel free.
No, I think you hit all of it there. Outside of the fifth grades for the two new schools and Edison, which they're going to get in the referendum, any new classrooms that we build is included furniture. So we're, like Dave said, we're looking at all the other buildings that don't have that furniture included in that referendum work.
Okay, I have two questions that are related. So do I understand it correctly that the teachers are choosing what furniture they want in the classrooms?
Yes. Initially, we sit down there, like if there's 3 fifth grade teachers or 3 kindergarten, we'll have a meeting with the teachers, all of them in there, and get their input. And then what we're doing is once we finalize everything, we're sending it back to the teachers and say, is this what you wanted? And they go, yes. And so they have input of how they want their classrooms situated along with the principal. There's some things that the principal has overridden, or they want to stay consistent. But yes, the teachers do have input on their classroom furniture.
Okay, so Dave Moyer, this is probably more directed toward you. I'm thinking about the situations where teachers are moving from grade to grade or, building to building or classroom to classroom. I guess the classroom to classroom at the same grade level, it might not make a difference. But are we,
Right.
I assume what we're doing is clearly communicating out to our staff and the union, right, leadership, that this is how it's to work.
Yeah, well, you kind of read my mind. I was anticipating that this was where you might be going a little bit. And I just, I wanted to add on to what Todd said. There are district specs. So they have to, they have some choice within some district guidelines. And there were some interesting conversations that emerged periodically where we said, that's not going to happen. And part of the reason is for reasons that you, I think, are referencing, which is you might not be at that school for the rest of your career. You might not be at that grade level for the rest of your career. You might be retiring in 3 years. This is part of the long-term district programming. And so we did have to work through some of those things, but Todd and Chris and the principals were very good about meeting with every single fifth grade team across the district to get their input. And where we had some, some areas of disagreement, we were able to work through them. And in some cases, we had to kind of be a little bit more directive in some of our I don't want to call them negotiations, but but I think ultimately in the end, everything landed in a good place.
Great. I really like the way that you phrased it, where it's district, so we're part of, one unit. So that's great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Kara, you have a question?
Yeah. So I guess in light of, the situation we're in now and a lot of cleaning, I'm looking at those beanbag things and that I'm just curious, are those washable? How durable are they? They're not looking industrial. Just, if you could speak to that a little bit.
Some of those are washable. They're pretty durable. I'll be honest, anything you put in a classroom with a kid in there, who knows how long it's going to last. But, we've had some samples in the schools here the last year or whenever we had school last time. So they work out pretty good. I mean, are they going to last 20 years? No, but they're really, it's a good quality. They're manufactured well, and the kids really do like them. Believe it or not, they love that type of furniture out there. So especially when they're sitting there with their Chromebooks or whatever. So, you know.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess just, because we're in this situation, which is, different than how we started the school year, just keeping, I'd hate to see us put a lot of money into something that would end up being almost disposable because it wouldn't be able to be cleaned in the same way. So, it's not necessarily, I don't know, just, I guess I'm just raising that as something to watch out for, especially as we make these investments. You want them to last for as long as possible. And they might not be totally industrial, but hopefully as close to industrial grade as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. But, that's the process we have. With having our consultant on here, this is stuff that she's used in other districts. And, she kind of vets all this stuff. So this is stuff that we put in here. She's already vetted it through. So it doesn't make it to our list of standards until she's vetted it through. She's had some history with it. She's done the research on it. So I really feel comfortable that this will be a product that will be suitable for us.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's all from me.
Todd, I have a question, a follow on from Kara's question. Do other districts have a budget to replace some of this less durable furniture as time goes on?
Each district is different. A lot of districts will put it on the referendum when they go through all this stuff. I can just give you the history that in my last district, the furniture was not part of our $250 million referendum. It was money that we were putting $1.3 million a year for furniture replacement. So a lot of districts don't have it, or there's a need for it, but a lot of times they'll put it in the referendum. And each district's a little bit different on how they approach that based on the funding that they do have.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like some of this is analogous to driver's ed cars. You just have to budget every year to rotate them through as some become unusable.
You're absolutely correct. And that's a lot of districts don't put the money in there for budgeting for furniture. As you can see, the furniture in our district is probably 20 or 30 years old. That's one of those things that districts just forget about. But that's pretty much been the hot topic here over the last, 5 to 7 years with the flexible classroom, and the furniture that we have right now just really doesn't fit into that model.
Yeah, in fact, I would be surprised if it were only 30 years old. I think my initials are still on some of the bottoms of some of those desks.
Oh, we might have to bill you back to replace that then.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Todd. Are there any other questions on this topic?
Well, we want to move on to show you the kindergarten.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this is kind of in the same thing. As we have new kindergarten classrooms that we're opening up for next year, along with the two kindergarten classrooms that we're building out at Jefferson, where we're converting one classroom into two. Same thing, we're bringing in the new furniture. And this is the same process that we had with the fifth grade furniture to bring more flexible into the classroom, different areas out there. And this is all based off of the standards that we have. Just to let you know, I'll just give you an example of Jackson out there. So we lay it out, we take the CAD drawings, measure out the room, meet with the principals, meet with the teachers, come up with some different concepts, and this is kind of what we have out there, which is a really great classroom. If you look at the current classroom out at Jackson for this room 120, this is a huge improvement. And you can see a lot of this, if you see the storage cabinets, everything's on casters. What we're trying to do is it's the flexible classroom. You can move things around. Instead of having a lot of built-ins, we're just moving things around so they can push everything off to the corner. They can rearrange their classroom whenever they want and things like that.
Now, are kindergarten classrooms the same deal as the fifth grade classrooms? Teachers have some say in what furniture is going to be in their classroom?
Yes, same process. Any new furniture we're putting in classrooms, it's going to be the same process where we'll meet with the principal, we'll meet with the teachers, give them, here's what our standards are, here's some conceptual designs, and have them go through the process of them selecting the furniture for their classrooms.
So if you had, say, 3 fifth grade rooms or 3 kindergarten rooms in the same building, those 3 fifth grade classrooms could actually all have different furniture in them?
Yes, they could have different furniture, but they'll have the furniture based off the standards. There's going to be some similarities between the classrooms. Like some might want more high top stools instead of the lower desks, but it's all going to be based off the standards we have. So there's going to be a lot of similarities between the classroom, but they may not be identical, but they'll be pretty close.
Got it. Okay.
And each classroom is different too on the physical layout of the classroom. Because when we look at these, we're not going to put the furniture in there that the room can't support it, because some of our rooms, they're not all the same size, especially in their older schools. So sometimes we have to make modifications on what we put in there based off the standards to make sure that it can fit within the classroom and they still have some flexibility in there.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions regarding furniture?
Yeah, Jim, I have one quick question. So Todd, it sounds as though new schools or new classrooms are pretty much just square, 4 walls and everything in it. There's no built-ins anymore and everything's just movable furniture. Is that it, basically?
We have, not quite. We have some built-ins, and with Edison on some of those, what we're trying to get, excuse me, is that teaching wall where we have the interactive monitor, and then we have some casework around it with the sliding board. So there is some casework in there. It's going to be a combination of both. But everything in the new schools is going to be based off of our current furniture standards. So White is working off of our current furniture standards and using that furniture to put it in the new classrooms at Edison along with Field and Lincoln.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on furniture? Should we move on to facility rental fees?
We should move on.
Let's go.
All right, letter E, facility rental fees 2020-21. This is similar to what we've done in the past. We've increased the rates by CPI, which is 1.9%. There really wasn't a whole lot of other changes other than the 1.9%. There was one change that had to do with the time that groups can get into the building. It seems that they keep arriving earlier and earlier than what is scheduled. So we changed the language to you get in at the time that you booked for, as opposed to 15 minutes, 30 minutes beforehand. So that was the one language change. Other than that, it's a 1.9% increase.
Okay, Chris, and Jim, the only question that I had is, it should be page 5, where we're talking about scheduling. Can you help me understand I'm not sure I understood the page. Well, it says page 4 at the bottom, but it's page 5 5 out of 18. It says reservations. So what's going on with the reservations, Chris? Just a bottom line.
Right.
Nothing new, just different dates?
Just different dates. So it's in mid-July every year, so we got to get the right dates in here. But the mid-July, we're doing from August through May,
Okay.
and then in March, they reserve for the summer.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else on
That's
rental
it.
fees? Okay. So, Elizabeth, sounds like we're up to the update on the bond market.
Yes. Elizabeth, are you ready?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So, Chris, if you want to flip through to the first slide, we've got a 5-year history of interest rates as represented by our AAA municipal market data index, as well as treasury bond rates. And rates look very low as they are. Let's go to the next page. Here we can see since November 18th, at the time the referendum was passed, where interest rates were. Those are the interest rates we used in our estimates to the community. Then where we sold the first bond issue July 23rd, 2019, last summer, which was for, I believe, 60 million. And then where we are currently today, as of April 6th, I guess that was last night, yesterday. So a lot of volatility. Let's go to the next page. And this shows the extreme volatility that we've experienced with the onset of the coronavirus and its impact on the United States. So we hit historic low interest rates on March 9th, 2020, if you look 3 columns from the left side of the page. And we had been trending down, which brought around our conversation with the board about whether we should be considering accelerating the issuance of 40 million of the bonds. We talked about the ability of the district to spend it within the IRS rules, and that seems to have all worked out. But with the onset of this pandemic, the bond market proceeded to implode. If you look at March 23rd, you can see rates went up 200 basis points, or 2%. The following week, rates came down 1.5%. Last week, rates went up 75 basis points, or 0.75%. And so far this week, rates have come down 25 basis points. We have been on a roller coaster. The reason for a lot of this is the fear about credit and municipal bond credits that are sales tax based, income tax based, state credits, the terrible strain this crisis is putting on cities. City of New York looking at a $10 to $15 billion shortfall. State of Illinois and the city of Chicago, who under normal circumstances are under stress. Now there is extreme stress. Standard & Poor's started reviewing and they didn't downgrade the state of Illinois, but they put them on negative outlook, which I think actually was a good result until they understand the state's financial plan given the coronavirus. And what's happened because of that is that we've seen Illinois credits trade up to 3.4% higher than the 10-year index for AAA bonds, which is the highest that bonds have ever traded for the state of Illinois. So, you know, whereas the district's credit is very strong, we are located in the state of Illinois and we can't get around that. So, whereas the good news is that we're starting to feel some stability in the market, the bad news is that we're in the state of Illinois and therefore the spreads to the MMD have widened. So right now, as of April 6th, at the 10-year, we see it's at 148, which is not too far off from where we were from the sale of the 2019 bonds. But, you know, we're not near that incredible low point that we were at the first week of March and the last week of February. So this page 5, if you can go to the next page, Chris, shows just kind of in graphic form, you know, where we were on Monday, March 9th, the lows of the low, and then how we went up so dramatically the following week. And really what happened is some of the largest funds that own municipal bonds sold. In fact, over a 2-week period, holders of bonds, funds, and large investors sold over 28 billion of bonds. And the only way the market could absorb that was for interest rates to go up to try to find someone who would step in and buy those bonds. Then you see from that high on March 23rd, is represented by the orange line, you see the blue arrows showing rates coming down the next week. It seemed to correct with the news that the Fed was going to introduce this huge CARES Act stimulus package, which will include the purchase of municipal bonds and support for state and local governments. The details of that are not really known yet. So there is some uncertainty around that, but that was certainly welcome news to the bond market. Since then, you can see some of the bounces up and the bounces down. It's like a ball that's bouncing as it's like slowly oscillating to stop. We hope it's going to stop soon and we're going to find some stability and some footing here. But certainly this means higher spreads for Illinois credits. So if we go forward from there to the next page 6 is our promise as of November 2018. And it looks at the various things that have been promised in terms of the tax impact of the $168.5 million to the owner of a $500,000 home, and the tax rate and the refundings. And so this is kind of our benchmark. And the only thing that's different here is that we did update the EAV and the CPI increases, and the August 19 issue is now finalized in here. Or no, it's not finalized in this chart. I apologize. It's in the next chart. Please turn to the next page if you would, Chris. So here we've got the issue that we did finalize in August of 2019, the 60 million. And then we've got the original plan to come back in April of 2021 with 55 million. And the reason we put that bond issue out there was number one, so we could, again, pay off some of the old existing bonds. And then we would coordinate with the call date, the current call date on some bonds that we need to refund to keep the promise. So that's why we had always kind of targeted that time frame. And then the last issue in January of 2023. And in this spreadsheet, we see kind of where we are now. What we've got for the April 2021 issue is current market spreads as of April 6th. We've got on the Series 23, a 1.5% interest rate cushion there because, again, that's out there a few years. So this is kind of the baseline. And then from there, we looked at the next page 8, Chris, the alternative option of accelerating 40 million of this now in May would be the realistic time. So interestingly, when this whole bond market imploded, Chris and I said, let's put off our rating presentation and wait because there's no way we can get into the market. And just so you know, there's been no Illinois issues at all. Until this week, there was one for the East Moline School District, and the spreads on that were quite high, but the rates are, as you can see from the MMD, starting to come down and settle down again. So that's a good sign, but just so you know, the primary market has been completely inaccessible for the most part, especially for Illinois credits. So then when rates started to come down, we got our appointment with Jessica Akey at Standard & Poor's back on the calendar, and we had that rating call last Wednesday. So we should be finding that rating out tomorrow. So we're in the ready position to go. But page 8 looks at what the impact of issuing the 40 million in May of 2020 at current rates, coming back then in April of 21, issuing the remaining 15 million with a refunding, and then of course our January 2023. So because the time period is longer, this option is more expensive overall. Remember, rate times time times amount. So the question is, how much do rates have to go up, if we go to the next page, to make us better off issuing this 40 million now or waiting until April of 2021? And the answer is now 55 basis points, 0.55%. April, it was 0.6%. So every month that goes by, the break-even increase gets about 5 basis points lower. Also, each month that passes saves about $296,000 of interest, right? Because we're shortening the time period that the bonds will be outstanding. So, you know, what we have to think about is how likely is it for rates to go up? I mean, my goodness, after being through the roller coaster we've just been on, as we know, anything can happen with interest rates. So if we can get in the market at something that I would think would be equal to or better than where we were in August of 2019, we should seriously consider it. We are now, once we get the rating and get the offering statement updated, we will be able to do that. But, you know, the impact of the coronavirus is very unknown in the long term. Typically, when we have a recession, interest rates are low. That to me says we should be seeing low interest rates. On the other hand, if we have real credit problems in Illinois, interest rates for issuers in Illinois, despite your strong AA+ rating, will be higher. So those are kind of the factors that are playing off here, and we wanted to kind of give you these numbers to get a feel for the economics. I think the good thing is each month that passes, the break even gets lower and we have less interest cost. If we go to the next page, we see the 55 all at once issue in April 21 is represented by the green line in terms of the year taxes are paid and the tax rate, and the 40 million issued now. So you see these lines are pretty much on top of each other. If rates stay as low as they are today, by April of 21, the green line, we will be lower, marginally lower. If they go up more than 55 basis points, we'll be marginally higher than that red line. The next page is just the final chart that you've seen in the past, the promise, where the purple bar represents the outstanding debt that the district's paying right now through 2025. The green bar on top, which represents the additional amount for the homeowner, and that through 2025. And then the big green bar is the average payment from 26 to 42 for that owner of the $500,000 home. So you see the promise, where we were, where we are now, assuming we wait till April 2021 and issue the 55 million, that's the middle set of bars. And then if we issue the 40 million in May of 2020, where we would be short-term and long-term. So lots of information, lots to think about. I mean, our recommendation is not to go into the market now. Next week, the week after, we need to find more stability. We need to get an operational market in Illinois up and running again. But, you know, as we go forward, if we get stability, I think this could be a real option. The good news is we're in the ready position. So I will be happy to answer questions.
Anything for Elizabeth?
Well, Jim, I don't know if it's Elizabeth, you or whatever. I mean, it's Karen, just kind of what I was thinking is I'm not sure that if we're looking at this slide that Chris and Dave have up, I'm not sure we want to do the alternative option, right? I mean, that's based on projected what the rates would be.
That's based on the rates for the 55 million in the middle option and the 40 million in the option on the far right as of today.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Right. Yeah, clearly, it's not in the taxpayer's best interest to go to market, in the next few weeks. But
Right.
the situation we want to be in is we want to be able to take advantage in a market that has such volatility. We may find ourselves like we had found ourselves on March 9th, but we weren't ready to go.
Right.
Whereas it would be a substantial advantage to our taxpayer to issue early rather than our scheduled April 21st. I mean, imagine being in a situation where, like the school district that did issue, they needed the money. They had to issue, and they had to pay the price that the market would bear. I'd rather be in a situation where we can take an advantage of the market when it presents us with an opportunity to lower the expense for taxpayers.
Yep, I'm with you.
So the credo here is just let's be ready,
Yeah.
but we're not obligated to do anything.
Correct. And that's great. We don't have to feel the pressure. Yes.
In any of these schemes, this is Rob Martinelli. In any of these schemes, the 26 through 40, the promise for, if I'm reading this right, I just want to make sure I understand this. Either option, the 26 to 42, we are bettering what we promised the taxpayer, correct? In the original, in the 55 million in April versus the 40 and 15, which is a good story either way. So in either case, split it or don't split it, you're in a better, you're looking to be long-term in a better position.
Correct.
That's the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob, we promised in the referendum, we told the taxpayer that if you owned the hypothetical $500,000 house in Elmhurst and you voted yes, your taxes over the long run would go up $150 million or $150 a year. By having taken advantage of the market when it presents us opportunities, we've gotten that tax increase over the 25 years down to, Elizabeth, do you have that number?
I don't have it. It's substantially less though.
Yeah, it's like 70 something.
Yes. Right.
I thought it was 73. I didn't.
Yes.
Maybe it's 75.
It's like amazingly lower.
Right.
You
So half, right? If it's 73, it's, Eastern
Right.
Illinois math, as I like to say, that's half. That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
So either way, being ready, you're ready to be in a great position.
Exactly. And the closer we can get that number down to zero, the better off everyone is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're still on target with being ready. And then we still have Chris Welton, you, Jim, Elizabeth. Can't remember if the board president has to sign off, and so we can, if everything is, I'll call it the sweet spot, then we execute. Otherwise we hold because we have the time to do that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if we do nothing, all we've lost is the ratings fee from S&P.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you very much. You've done a substantial amount of work in this presentation.
Thank you,
And
Jim. Good to see you all. You bet.
Yeah, we sure appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thanks all. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
On to student fees.
Yes, we're through item F, on to G, which is
Chris, do you mind if I cut out? I don't think you need me for.
no, we're good, Rob. Thank you so much.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take
Thanks,
care, everybody.
Rob.
Be safe, and make sure if your houses aren't clean by the end of this, you kind of have a problem. Enjoy. Rob, take care.
All right. So ECA fees are the first item here. As you know, the student fees are for consumable supplies in the classroom, textbooks, resources, and this year we have new resources in science, and that has caused the increases at the pre-K, kindergarten, and grades 1 through 5. So that's the $14 increase and the $14 increase for kindergarten and pre-K, and the $10 increase in 1 through 5. Those are all due to the new science curriculum. 6 through 8 stays the same. We have an increase in cross-country from $20 to $30, and then in basketball from $125 to $150. That's based on the cost of those programs going up. And then the credit card fee that we used to charge, we are going to eliminate that because RevTrack, we're not using RevTrack anymore. We'll be using PushCoin, where PushCoin charges the financing fee direct to parents. And so that's the pre-K through 8th grade fee. Any questions on that?
So Chris, what's the expense for cross country? I mean, I know it's only $10, but what has increased?
Well, the cost for cross country includes stipends primarily, stipends and officials, and I mean it's gone up $10. That's the boys cross country per student cost. We're at $25.27, and the girls cross country was at $35.57. That's 25% of the net cost per student.
But the stipends are the same, or are they increasing year to year?
They've increased.
Is it based on CPI? If I recall, it's contractual, right?
Contractual.
Okay, I'm just curious. I mean, all these others should be stipend, right? Related to. I wonder what the methodology or the process behind.
Well,
how do things get decided that they increase versus others, et cetera?
Well, you divide by the number of participants, so that's a big factor as well. So if your number of participants goes down, then your cost per participant goes up.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, so then we're going to move on to the York fees. Going to move on to York fees.
Is this the one you wanted to show?
No. So we have a project Lead the Way is a new course fee. $30. That is for consumed supplies in the project Lead the Way classroom or courses. So that's a $30 fee. That's a new fee because it's a new project Lead the Way courses at York. Again, we've taken out the $3 processing fee because we are using PushCoin. And then as far as athletic fees, we had to switch around some of the tiers. Some sports have changed tiers, and then we had an increase to the fourth tier. The fourth tier is the most expensive sports per student. So that's going from $250 to $275 based on the costs per participant. So it's the athletic tiers are 100, or the proposed for 2021 are 100 in the first tier, 155, 200, and now the fourth tier is 275. And those are really the only changes at York. The one thing that I want to just touch on here is it was suggested that we eliminate the instrumental music fee at 150. That fee started during the EPERT process. And the rationale in EPERT was that the middle school was charging 150. So, and the reason the middle school was charging 150 at the time was because of the before school every day. And so then York made it 150, but now the school has lowered that fee, and we still have 150 on here. So we're proposing no change, but it was brought up by the York administration that we should eliminate the 150.
So you
But
just
that would
brought
be
it to our
a
attention, but it has,
Go ahead, Karen.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing you said, Chris.
It would just be a reduction in revenue streams.
Okay, so you're bringing that to our attention, but that decision has not been made, right?
Nope. I just wanted to make sure that I let you know that the discussion happened.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chris,
Yes,
is there any impact with the spring sports being canceled?
that's a
Is
good
that going to
question,
affect?
Gordon. I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to get feedback on that. The IHSA has not canceled the season yet. I'm sure you read that in the Daily Herald as I did. The IHSA is waiting for a decision on the end of school before the IHSA decides whether to cancel, I guess, the IHSA tournaments in the spring. So we have taken the position where that parents don't owe that fee at this time. When I was talking to you about it earlier, was to get feedback on at what point do we say there will be no fee in the spring. I mean, obviously there's going to be no playing season, but I was saying to Jim, like, what if there is a very short season, a week or two of games, and then an IHSA tournament? Would we charge the fee or just waive the fee because it's just such an abbreviated participation for those students? Did you have a thought on it, Dave?
I have a biased opinion, seeing as I got an email today asking for money.
Yeah, and you know that I'm so glad you brought that up, Gordon. And I know that Chris and I exchanged emails today about it. That push coin automatic notification. I'm sorry, this is Courtney Troutman. That push coin notification went out to all spring athletes. Some families did not receive the follow-up email from Drew McGuire saying disregard. And I know that Bev and the district are going to work, and Aaron are going to work in making sure there's a clear communication that those kind of push coin notifications asking for athletic fees for the spring, you do not need to adhere to that. I mean, they're being waived as of now. Is that accurate, Chris?
No, not waived. We haven't made a decision yet to waive.
Well, you're telling people not to pay them right now.
Right. They're not, they don't owe it at this time.
So I think the likelihood of us in all reality and coming back to school in May is pretty slim. But the IHSA is holding out some contingency plans for the potential of some type of a tournament structure, and the conference is considering some type of a way to provide some opportunity if that were to be possible. And so we didn't feel like we should completely suspend the possibility of any kind of a season until the governor makes a statement about the rest of the school year. And so I think that the decision that needs to be made, if there is some type of a season, there is going to be some type of busing. there is going to be some type of officials consideration, and the coaches are being paid their stipends, and they are doing their best to work with the kids remotely regarding workouts, video analysis, whatever the case may be. So I think the question before people is, do you charge a prorated fee if there's some semblance of a season? Or do you just call it off and say there's no fee? And do you want to do that before you know for sure if there is going to be any kind of a season or not? Do you want to make that decision, like immediately, or do you want to wait till we know more? I mean, I think those are like the two hinge points to decide what you want to do.
Yeah, personally, I think it makes most sense to wait until we have more information whether there's going to be an abbreviated season or not.
And that's how I understood Chris Walton to be talking. So,
yeah, if I missed a little bit, I apologize. I've been jumping in and out because we have a domestic abuse thing that I got raked into here. So I didn't mean to.
No problem.
I didn't mean to convolute the conversation. If I did that, I apologize.
No problem at all.
I heard Chris asking me if I had a thought on this, and I thought I was a little late getting back into the conversation. So.
Oh, no, it was good, Dave. And I guess I just wanted to validate. That's Chris, that's how I understood your position at this point. And I wanted to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, why don't we table that topic until we know what the IHSA is going to do about the spring season.
But if they do cancel it, we will take all those fees. They'll be waived. No one will have to pay for the spring sport if there is no season.
Okay.
Now, can I also go back to this instrumental music fee? I think that the high school has a good point. That was implemented as part of EPERT, which was a decade ago when the school district couldn't pay their bills for the year. We're in a substantially different position today. And the middle schools have eliminated that fee.
Or reduced it.
I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense to eliminate or reduce it at the high school as well. Our parents complain often about how much it costs to send a kid to high school today. And I think that would be a way to lower that cost by reducing that fee.
Well, I mean, I think that we should approach it just like we do all the others, right? I mean, what's appropriate and what's not. So what's the cost? And you know what I'm saying? I don't think that we can pick and choose. We have to be consistent across everything. But that we did that at one point. And so I guess my question would be is where does this fit in? I assumed that it fit into the methodology, but if not, yeah, let's talk about it.
And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we started to charge that at the middle school because band, orchestra, choir was taught before school started. And the idea was that it fell into the same category as any other extracurricular activity. And now that we've moved band, orchestra, choir into the school day at the middle school, the idea of reducing that fee is because it's no longer an extracurricular activity, it's during the school day. At the high school, those kids, not only is it during the school day, but it's a graded class. So the idea here was it was an extracurricular and it's not.
So I think, Jim, that we are all speaking the same language on this one. The fee at the middle school level was initially designed to cover the cost of the stipends. I'm not 100% sure what the rationale was to support the fee at the high school level. I don't know if any of us was, Chris, when we had these conversations, if I recall, I'm not sure if any of us was ever able really to exactly pinpoint the connection between the high school fee and and the rationale. But
The
maybe I'm
rationale
wrong about
was to match it to the middle school. That was the rationale in the EPER process. And the middle school had 5 days a week before school for an hour. And they had busing costs, they had the cost of the instruction before school. And now they've reduced that to 1 day a week. Is that right? Adrian, is that right? 1 day a week? Or 2 days?
I think they meet before school.
1 day a week. So we've reduced that fee to $30. At the 4th through 8th grade, the instrumental music is $30. Reduced from $150.
So can you come back to us with what is the $150 for the instrumental music for the high school? I mean, is that equipment? I mean, instruments?
Well, Karen, I think historically the way Chris explained it was the high school didn't have a fee. When a fee was implemented at the middle school, we implemented a fee at the high school just to match the middle school.
During EPER, they implemented the $150 fee.
Chris, did we get any kind of clarification if that was attached to sheet music, uniform repair,
Right.
or any kind of connection to a cost subsidy?
Well, as you know, the students at the high school pay for their instruments, other than the super large instruments like piano that they have at York, or the big. I mean, the largest instruments. I don't think the students pay for them. We have large instruments at York that are used by students, but the students have their own instruments. So the costs are for the large instruments, salaries. There's obviously performances that we pay stipends and that sort of thing, but it's not a regular, like a lot of the other fees are for consumable goods. This is definitely not for consumable goods, and it was implemented to match what the middle school. And the idea behind it, I wasn't here at the time, but I think the concept was you either had to reduce costs or increase fees. But the idea was to reduce the burden on the district by a certain percentage. And in this case, the music department decided they did not want to make any cuts. No cuts. Let's just charge a fee. And so that's where this 150 came from.
I think that's a fair summary. I mean, EPERT was an attempt to increase revenues to fix the budget.
Can I ask or say something? This is Kara. I just, assuming you're going to go back and look at this, I would think that there would at least be a course fee with this, just like, we have an art fee, some of these other things I look at. I could be wrong, but it seems like just because there are a lot of extra costs associated with the music classes. I don't know. I guess I'd be curious if there was a course fee that helped offset some of that. Might not be 150, but
yeah, I think it's worth going back and just rethinking what that fee should really be.
Okay, I'll go back. I will talk to the York administration about the instrumental music fee.
And Chris, this is Beth. If you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Are the students at York in these programs, are they meeting before school or after school or times other than just that during the day classroom time?
They just meet during class time. And sometimes they have sectionals during their lunch hour, during half of their lunch hour.
Okay, so there's not anything outside of the school day like there used to be in the middle school.
Correct, except for performances.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if there are sectionals, I don't know how that is accounted for in the staffing, if that is counted as a period of work.
They are sometimes after school.
Yeah, they are.
They are, because it's a athletic. There tends to be a a problem.
A conflict?
Yeah. How do I say that? There's a conflict. It's hard to be an athlete and a musician in that situation. So it is. There are sectionals, and they are required. And usually, your grade goes down if you don't attend, and the students struggle to. There's kind of a push-pull between coaches and, it's a graded thing after school.
That must be for band.
I know it's for band, yeah.
And it was for orchestra.
So that's instrumental music, right?
Right.
Okay, so we'll talk to the York administration. We'll mention the fact that there are sectionals at lunch and there are after-school practices. So after-school practices, and see if we can. Maybe we come up with a fee that's $30 or something different than $150.
Yeah, I think it's worth going to have, just making sure that there's always rationale behind what we're charging for all these fees.
That sounds good. So moving on to lunch, breakfast, milk. This shouldn't take very long because it is no change. We're going with the same lunch fees, same breakfast fees, same milk fees for next year. Unless there are any questions about that. All right, moving on. Forecast 5 projections. So the front page, there's an asterisk there, disclaimer, projections do not include the referendum revenues or expenditures. These projections are strictly for operating funds. The first slide talks about our mix of revenues, which we are 84% property taxes, 3% federal, 7% state, and then there's the other, which is 6%. On the next slide, it's just showing the assumptions used for CPI. Next year, CPI, this last levy was based on the 1.9. 2.3 is for the next levy in December. And then we use 2% moving forward.
Hey, Chris, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sir.
Hey, Jim, I think if you turn your mic off, it might be easier to hear Chris. We're getting some feedback. Kind of hard to hear,
Okay.
At least I am.
Yeah, will do. I just wasn't very quick on the button, so I left it on. So let me turn it off.
All right, so CPI projected at 2%. Next slide is the new construction. Looks like you were good. Keep going one more. You're good. So if you look at the new EAV growth, looks like my slide had a little problem, but it shows 73 million in 2018. That was when TIF 1 came back on the tax rolls. So that's why that spike happened. This 2019, we were at 42 million, which was better than expected, for which we just got that number. That is fresh number that I just got from DuPage County, 42 million. I was projecting 35 million, so or 34. So that was better than expected. Next year we do have a TIF coming off. That's TIF 3 over by Portillo's. Whole Foods there. That TIF is coming off next levy. That's worth $8 million. So that is why I was actually projecting new construction at $22 million with $8 million for the Portillo's TIF. And then 25, 25, 30, 30. I mean, it's really a hard thing to estimate with the current economy. And then the next slide is existing EAV. I've talked about this before. This existing EAV really doesn't impact our revenues. It just impacts the tax rate. So we can move on from that. The next slide is just our mix of expenses. We talk about the fact that we are, so this says 66% salaries, 12% benefits, so 78% of our expenditures is staffing. I talk about that a lot. On the revenue side, it's all property tax, or mostly 84% property taxes. On the expenditure side, we're almost 80% staffing, salaries, and benefits. So our key expenditure assumptions, the current contract is through the end of next year. And then it will be subject to negotiations after that. We have in this model projection 13.1 FTE for next year. And then 1 in 22 and 23, 4 in 24. That's a lot of, so in the 13.1 it's like 9 for ADK, all day kindergarten for next year. And then with that additional 4, we have some additional all day kindergarten coming on after we build Lincoln and Field. But we also were projecting an additional EL teacher each year, or in these projections. Benefits 7% per year.
Chris, can I just mention something that we are down in general ed staffing this year. The EL and the special education is up a little bit, but that number is largely due to all day kindergarten, which is cost neutral. So we actually did a pretty good job this year. It doesn't necessarily look like it. But the slight increases that are beyond the all-day kindergarten are due almost exclusively to EL and special education.
And then, so health benefits, we increased at 7% per year. We've been doing a lot better than that. I mean, that 7% is a trend. It is a conservative number. We've been beating that. I should knock on wood though, right? And then the last other expenditure is consistent with prior assumptions. That's where we do a lot of CPI increases in a lot of the line items, but tuition, so that's outplacement tuition is a higher percentage increase in the assumptions. So that's really all I have to say about the assumptions. Then when we get into the projections on the next slide, you really get out there far when you get out there 4 or 5 years. You're really looking at the next 2 to 3 years when you look at the projections. And in the next 2 to 3 years, we're looking at budgets. The next 3 years or so, we have a few positive years, and then in FY23, we're looking at a slight deficit of 246, which that's practically a break even in 2023. And then as the increases outpace the revenue, the expenditure increases outpace the revenue increases out there in year 4 and 5, we show some deficits. And that is illustrated on the last slide there, which just shows the chart in the operating funds going down slightly over the 5 years. Now, in meeting with this morning, I was on a call with my colleagues and IASBO talking about just all of the financial implications going on at the state. This is not a worst case scenario type of thing. This is kind of a best guess now, but there are going to be a lot of ramifications of the coronavirus, and state income taxes, sales taxes are gonna be impacted. They're talking about, we don't know, but in the future, if evidence-based funding can be funded at the same rate or less, certainly now that income taxes have been delayed, that's going to hurt the cash flow of the state. So currently, we're delinquent on 2 categorical payments. I would guess that they're going to fall further behind on categorical payments. Currently they're going to fund the evidence-based funding for this year for sure throughout the fiscal year, but next year is certainly it's going to be tough for the state moving forward. And I haven't done any scenarios where we're reducing state funding, that sort of thing. This is just where we're at right now.
Thanks, Chris, for saying this is where we are and clarifying. Thanks for thinking about, we at some point, maybe sooner rather than later, look at or keep in touch with what's going on and how it impacts us, and do it soon enough that we can make wise decisions earlier than later. Like, what do we have to cut back on, or what can we slim down, or can we look at things, providing education in different ways in a lot of different areas. And I think that that's smart. So thank you. Because those were the questions I was thinking, is the way that the state has been moving toward communities like ours or counties like ours, where it's going to be more and more locally funded education. We need to make sure that we understand how can we provide the quality of education that the community is used to, and we need some runway if we need to do things differently. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Karen, I'll even throw in a tangent to what you're saying here. As Chris Welton says so many times, our expenses go up faster than inflation.
Yes.
And if we were to rely solely on our PTEL cap on our property taxes, we would be eating into our reserves every year. It is the new construction component that provides us that cushion to actually have a small surplus every year. Once that new construction goes away, and many economists believe we are in a recession right now. Mm-hmm. Once we see the effects of that, we may see in the next few years that new construction number coming down substantially. In that case, as you say, Karen, we need to start discussions about what can we do without.
Yeah, and be creative, like we said how many years ago, we're not going to continue to increase FTE. We're looking at different ways of doing that, but we've invested on different things, but we've also seen FTE increase. So, there's just things like that I really think that we need to begin to, for sure, think about it. So that's why I wanted to say thanks, Chris. But I think maybe in the short, even in the near term future, we need to have some of those discussions or have the data, or prioritize, like how do we begin to look at various different parts of the district, and can we think differently, and what does that mean, especially with all the transformation that we're doing. I agree with you, Jim. We cannot continue. I mean, EAV is not going. New growth is not going to. It's not sustainable. I mean, we cannot continue. We can't make decisions as though that's the norm. We saw that not work in Springfield, right?
Right.
With all the guarantees that they put in place, as though it was going to be the 90s and the boom. Like the economy never dips. And I don't want to be a district that thinks like that. We haven't all the time that I've been on the board. And so I think that we need to continue the conversations and the thought process that we have had traditionally since I've known 2011. We always want to have the runway. We always want to be thinking ahead. And so that we don't have to get into the situation that we were in pre-2011 and the whole EPERT process. I mean, we're doing great things, but why can't we now start thinking about how can we do things? I'm going to call it more with less. I mean, 30 years ago in my corporate days, we had to do that, and we actually transformed the business. So it's not always a negative. It's just a different attitude and perspective as to how you have conversations.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Any other thoughts on financials?
I just wanted to chime in. Jim and Karen couldn't agree more. And just, as we see our community, there's a lot of changes, happening to our families and people having to make adjustments. And I think we have a responsibility as well as the board to just scrutinize everything that, we're doing, the decisions we're doing to really best serve the community, to provide the best education we can and use our resources really wisely. Not that we haven't, but, just looking at every piece of the budget to see, is there any way we can, do it better by either spending less or making a change, whatever that looks like. So I just think that, I just wanted to let you know I couldn't agree more. And I feel that responsibility as we look around and see our landscape changing pretty quickly.
Yeah. And we have no idea what the effects of this coronavirus and we have some idea of the number of new unemployment claims.
Yeah.
Which is unprecedented. So I think as it unfolds, we're going to, as Karen says, do more with less.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, one last thing. Yes. You keep saying that our expenses are outpacing our revenue. I mean, we just can't, we have to now start to do something about that instead of it's happening. But how do we now, with a runway, start actually making decisions so that that's not the case? Because otherwise we are going to be in an EPERT situation. I know too many people that have lost jobs and they don't have an income. So we're going to be hit. And so I think it's just smart for us to start thinking about it. I mean, even having conversations about how do we do that?
Right. Agreed. Let's be realistic about the economic situation, and let's start talking about it. Anything else on our financials? Then how about we move on to the activity bus replacement plan?
Okay, so the activity bus replacement plan, when I came into this district, we had a 2006 activity bus, and then the rest were all 2001s. We bought them all at one time. So we've been trying to replace at least one per year. But this year, we took one out to bid. We had a vendor working with us on developing the bid specs, and that same vendor was the only one that bid. So we did not feel comfortable taking that to the board because of a single source bidding. So that money was budgeted and not used this year, but we think we should replace 2 next fiscal year. It's just a cash flow thing where we didn't spend it this year. We had budgeted for, but these 2001s are getting older. Now, I'll say this, that the activity buses, we don't put a lot of miles on these activity buses. They are used for, well, we have 2 at each middle school. Is that right, Adrian? 2 at each middle school, and then some at York. But they don't have a ton of miles. They're not like our cars that we use. They don't drive a long distance. So, and when we replace one or when we purchase one, we have our maintenance staff assess the condition of our fleet, and we trade in or sell our worst condition bus. So the ones that are left we have 3 2001s left. Those were, the best of this fleet. So we're going to replace 2 of those 2001s in fiscal year 21. And so then the last 2001 will be replaced in fiscal year 22. So it'll be 21 years old when we replace the last 2001 activity bus. But I mean, we've been trying to ladder out these things so that we can kind of get on a cycle of purchasing one per year. But next year we're going to purchase 2. So that's really all we wanted to talk about as far as the bus replace. And I guess Adrian's going to work with several vendors to try and develop specs where we can get more than one bid. So it's a competitive process. So that's item K. The last item is just the March financials. I really didn't have nothing jumped out at me as something that I really needed to point out there, where we are looking to be trending slightly better than budget, assuming the June taxes come in similar to the way they've come in the past, which is probably, I do think that our collection rate on property taxes will probably take a hit, but I do think we'll come in near budget based on what I'm seeing right now. Nothing is jumping out at me as something that we're gonna be far away from budget. Any questions on the financials? Okay. Then I think we move to adjourn.
Yeah, I am amazed that we have gotten through. Well, we have anybody with any updates?
Well, let me just say this. I am trying to work on amendment to the contract with First Student. A lot of school districts are working with their bus contractors to continue to pay them, but we're willing to pay for the drivers. We want to keep our drivers. It's very important that we have the high quality bus service that we've always had in this difficult time. But there are some costs that are tied to the fleet that and profit. So we're trying to come up with an agreement with the bus company where we're still paying them. Other districts, it sounds like it's a lot of it's coming in 75, 80% or so of the current contract is what a lot of these transportation contract amendments are looking like.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, to maintain the drivers, I mean, clearly they have a cost of capital of owning those buses and paying for the buses, but they are also not incurring a lot of operating costs that we shouldn't have to pay for. So I think that makes sense. Is there a way that we can get together with other school districts?
I am in touch with a lot of my colleagues. We're all kind of in the same boat trying to work out something. We have our lawyer reviewing the contract languages, contract amendment languages. We're trying to work out something that's fair and still we're protected. So that's ongoing, is working with both of our busing contractors to try and get an agreement with them.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, please keep us up to date on that.
And that's all I have.
All right. Any of the board members have any updates? All right. Hearing none. The next item on our agenda is adjournment, and I am actually pretty amazed that we managed to go through this agenda in 2 hours and 5 minutes. So thank you everyone for attending. Much appreciated. And with that, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, everybody.